You're listening to Data Center Therapy. Please take a number, and an engineer will be right with you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Data Center Therapy. I am your host, Matt Yeti, and I'm joined by my co-host drinking out of a nice REI-sourced titanium mug. I just saw that.
Snow Peak, titanium,
Mr. Matt
super light.
Pasolino.
Hello, guys. How's it going?
It is really good to see you, to talk to you, Matt. What's in the mug? I'm curious now. I mean, it's before noon, so...
It's Friday. It's Friday. It is definitely Friday. I've got some... Hey, you've got a glass there, too. So we got some ice, some bourbon in there for me. What do you got?
I've got ginger ale. I don't know what kind of thing you've got going on over there. So this episode brought to you by The Barrel. Nah, just joking. But it is Friday. We are recording, and this is episode 20. So we're kind of rounding a corner here, getting a little bit of a catalog built up. And Matt and I we tried to agree not to have technical discussions not recorded anymore.
We talk about so much stuff, and we cover so many things. It's like we should just have this microphone in our pocket, right, and just keep going all the time. Right,
we get down and we stop and we look at each other. We're wasting this. We're wasting this conversation. We should be recording this right now. So this episode is another one of those. We want to talk about containers. We've been talking about containers quite a bit.
It's a common theme.
We can't help it. It's being brought up at our VMworld Redux that Alec Taylor is running, and we've just finished our first 5 Redux events. We've got 3 more coming up in the Seattle area in early November. So if you want to go and you aren't signed up already for one of those spots, reach out to your account manager or email us at redux@evoxy.com. Definitely wanted to put that out there. But it is a topic that's being talked a lot about at these Redux events because mostly because of VMware's acquisitions that they announced at VMworld being pivotal and all of this. And it's everywhere.
Everyone's doing containers, and we need to be on that bandwagon, right?
And at least to be able to talk about it and say what's good and what's bad, because it, obviously, as always, the devil's in the details.
Let's at least understand it so we know it, right?
Right. And I decided to go into my own home lab and start diving deep and playing with this. And one of the things that slowed me down in terms of committing myself mentally to it is, well, this particular deployment, I did vSphere integrated containers, which is VMware's current available iteration of this is our container product. And that's going away. I would assume so with the Pivotal acquisition.
I would assume so also, yeah. Or at least changing, right? Because containers, we've got a question about how does the container work? And then we've got a question about how do we manage your container infrastructure, right? Yeah.
Right.
And those are 2 different things.
Yeah, and you go online and you start doing your research and you find everybody who's doing it is probably doing it a little bit differently than the guy next to him. And so it's just kind of like go. And we've talked about containers in previous episodes, and I've expressed my skepticism. Not like, though the technology is a bad idea, no, it doesn't work for anybody. It's not that. It's just, where are we positioning these things? Where is it a good idea? Where does it fit? Who's benefiting from this? And I came to the realization, and I think you lit up when I said it, in that we're so comfortable with the concept of virtualizing a physical machine, Windows, Linux, whatever, the OS. And that the concept of that as a virtual object that we can use shared storage, migrate from host to host, is so intrinsically baked into our core already. Where now, the idea of a container,
So we're going through that learning, the learning and the growing, and this is the first time we've done it. This is like ESX 1.0, right?
I feel like Neo just got pulled out of the Matrix, and I'm learning to use my eyes again.
How's this work? Yeah.
Well, how come I don't understand this? You've never used them before. So it's basically that for me, where I think I give myself the benefit of the doubt, and I say, okay, Matt, imagine a world in which virtual machines the concept of a VM is brand new to you. The hypervisor is a brand new concept. And I'll allow that maybe it would be just as foreign and difficult to understand had I spent the last, 20 years of my career doing containers.
Right.
And now wait, maybe I would be having the same kind of mental growing pains as I kind of am going through with containers.
I could see that. Yeah.
If anything, it helps me with an open mind.
There you go.
Where I can kind of, try to be like, no, 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 no. And now I'm going, well, let's just give it a shot.
So I think it sounded like you were talking about the containers as well, and having that at least deployment issue where it's, deploy this OVA, do this thing, and then build the rest of your infrastructure. And now that it's there, you can, right, kind of like draw a line, draw a circle, draw the rest of the owl, right? That kind of thing where it's that gap between you've got this bits installed and now it's configured and actually useful. Is there a gap there?
Well, especially when I'm already led down the road, I want to deploy X app. I spin up a VM and I install it, and that's it. And that is it's not the same approach. It's not just the same workflow, just different bits. And that's the rhythm you have to break yourself out of.
Right. You're right. So let me ask you this: What do you see as the benefit for the containers now? What's that? Why are you marching down that path?
So I'm marching down that path skeptically. I will full disclosure. I still think right now the container format benefits developers of products more than it benefits the user. So the user obviously has to take a paradigm shift, and VMware is with what at the Redux event, Alec talks about this, but the acquisitions, the Pivotal acquisition, and the various pieces built around that, they're turning containers into first-class citizens in their hypervisor environment. So the management tools are such a huge part of this. I mean, LXC, Linux containers, I mean, this stuff's been around for decades. That Docker just kind of popularized it, but the orchestration and the management is where it's at. Because it is such an abstract concept, like you said, it's not you do all this stuff manually. It's like that's all there, and now you can just orchestrate it in a standard way. That's a tough part. But I to get back to your original point, I think it's a developer-focused thing. So the developer says currently, or legacy way, here's a binary for CentOS, here's a binary for Ubuntu, here's a binary for Win32, here's a binary for Mac OS, and they've got all of those distros that they have to keep on the level. A new release, they can't release an update for one until they've updated all four of those architectures and so on. Where now they say, I don't care, here's a container, you deal with that underlying stuff. And so is that better for the user on that face? No, I think.
Potentially,
because I now have a much longer path, and now you've just thrown more responsibility into my lap, the user, the consumer.
I think that at the end of the day, like where this is going, where I personally want to see this go, is that the container is the mechanism to provide the application to the end user. So just like
we're saying the same thing, yes.
Right. So just like today, right? We've started with virtualization, and it's here's your app. I want to build this. I want to install this application, so I need to spin up 3 Windows VMs, and then I need to patch them to this level, and then I need to install my SQL database, and then, right? That was what the VM environment started with. That's how we do that, because that's just like what we did back when it was physical hardware. And now, when you deploy vCenter, it's an OVA, right? Go download this OVA and deploy it to your environment. You want to deploy NSX, download this OVA, deploy it to your environment.
And on deployment, it says, answer me these questions because I'm going to need them, and do it up front, and then I just go and do it.
So the benefit that I see out of containers is taking that kind of concept the next step further, right? When you talk about installing this application, it's download these binaries for your Ubuntu build, install them, make sure you've got the appropriate prerequisites installed on the machine as well. Make sure you've got this version of Java, this version of lib whatever, this version of blah, 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 right? You've got to go through all of that process where we can shrink that up and say, here is your deployment. Go pull container XYZ version 342, right? That's that benefit. That's what I want to see out of it. Specifically.
And also not mess up anything that might be on the same system where in a Linux environment,
Right.
if I do a yum install or an apt-get, and it says, okay, fine, maybe Java 8 is linked to that, where it says I'm a prerequisite, I'm going to go pull that down. That's great. You just blew up that other app that I have installed on this VM because it needed Java 7, and you just overrode my default symlinks.
Right, exactly. That's exactly
Yes.
the problem
Yes.
it's solving, right? Combined with the fact that it makes it really easy to step forward and backward with versions.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I can call out a specific number that I know is good.
You're getting on to my point about my discomfort about it, though. At the same time, you've used the word, or you've used the term, the phrase that, if something, I've read, not only you, it's self-healing. If something breaks, it can just spin up new ones, or you go back to configuration. That, and maybe I'm missing something, but that makes me very uncomfortable. Here's a configuration. Nothing changed. Why would it break? Why would it crash? And I don't care if it's going to spin up another one. What's to say that that new one's not going to crash because something's wrong that's causing it to crash? Or is it so inherently unstable that things just crash, but don't worry, we start up a new one? That doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies.
So
am I missing something here with that?
I think what you're looking at there is what level of troubleshooting do you want to get into, right? If you upgrade an Exchange version, and that Exchange version has a baked-in issue, are you expecting to go in and find that issue with Exchange and resolve it? Or are you expecting to say, well, my upgrade got foobarred, now I need to roll back and go through my rollback plan and stay where we are until my upgraded target gets resolved?
I mean, and again, what I do is I try to approach that with how do we do it now, and is there a benefit to going in a different direction? I don't know, but I will say this: and Windows is a really tough example because historically their logging and the ability to consume those logs and analyze them is not wonderful. Whereas something on the Linux side, where are you dumping your logs? Great. Or if you're not dumping enough, let me go into the config file and set that verbose flag to true, and then restart the service and look. The black box nature of a container, where it's just this, it's this ephemeral thing running there. I know you can have persistent storage, but still, I feel so disconnected and locked out of actually looking at the guts. And what you're saying is, hey, Matt, yes, that's the benefit, that's the beauty. And here I'm the old curmudgeon saying, my goodness, that makes me so uncomfortable to not be able to reach into that engine
off my lawn.
and look. I'm sorry, and I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, geez, this is my nature. How do I get past this?
So I think there's two different things. Is one, you gotta look at and understand how you're going to leverage them, right? If your deployment is having an issue with the interaction between this application that you're trying to run and 3 or 4 of its dependencies because the provider didn't do their due diligence and upgraded this version, and it pulled across this package into the container, and it had this dependency and it broke this thing. If that's the thing that's broken, then the solution for that is roll back to the version before and run your stuff and let them fix it, because that's the whole idea behind the package, right? They need to fix that and redeploy it so that you can move on to that next one. If it's something like, I know we've brought up Plex before, right? So if it's something like Plex or Radar or Sonar, where these applications need to interact with this other service over here, and you need to get logging out of that application to see why isn't this application actually connecting to this service and doing the thing? Those logs are still there, and the fact that that application creates those logs and sets them somewhere doesn't change. You still have that ability.
It is the paradigm shift, because think of the old way to do it. And I dig into the VM itself. I fix the bug, and then it just keeps on running and it's working. But and this is an argument against my point.
But then you
position.
can't redeploy that. You can't recreate.
You beat me to it.
Right?
You stepped on. You're absolutely right. Because I was going to say that's great. Now repeat that.
Exactly.
Whereas, but listen, my nature is to resist this. Okay, that I feel better about fixing a problem that way. But with a Docker container or a container, I have to redeploy every change I make. I have to retest every change I make. It start from scratch, so to speak. I make my tweak, but then I deploy it from scratch is what I'm saying, with my changes, right? And I push this container down. Oh, if that didn't work, fine. Make the change, redeploy it. Make this change, redeploy it. And it just feels weird to do it that way. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not complaining. It just feels so weird. But then here you go. Guess what? You made the fix. Now the next person to deploy it has your fix.
So yes, exactly. So I think part of that is from the fact that your background, my background is operations, right? We never we've never had to version control anything. We've never had to check out a repo, do some stuff, and check it back in, right? So that whole process is foreign to us, and I absolutely agree with that. When we've talked about Terraform, right? I'm still kind of wrapping my head around how do I leverage Git appropriately on a day-to-day basis. And it's, here's my Terraform script, and I'm going to run and make some changes and save and run and make some changes and save and just go through that cycle over and over and over again. Having to pause and make sure I check everything in at the end of the day because someone else might be using it is so incredibly foreign. I'm literally working for myself, right?
Well, and the difficulty in that is that you and me, being operations guys, and I've done iOS development. I've got an app on the App Store. I use GitLab privately. This is before GitHub had free private accounts, and I was not going to pay for a private repo, so I stood up with GitLab VM and ran my stuff there. So I use Xcode and I check out against it and I make commits and this and that, but that's a party of one right there.
And you have to ask yourself, why am I committing to this and why am I doing all of this when I'm literally the only person that looks at it?
Exactly. And when you're running your home lab, you don't have to run anything at scale. Repeatability, templateability, consistency with that, it really is hard to wrap your head around the value of that when it's just you running an app. But if I'm a developer and I need to test this stuff at scale and I need to spin up 1,000 instances of this to run and see how it's going to come and then make changes and tear it down and put it all back out there. Imagine spinning up 1,000 copies of a VM, running the clone scripts. No, I completely understand it. I just struggle with actually seeing it in the wild and the benefits of it, even though I know the benefits of it, because I don't live that life.
Right.
And I think what you see is you see new product development departments at companies who have one guy who's pretty good at IT doing it himself and kind of wagging the dog, so to speak, for his company on their approach to this. And then he leaves or she leaves, goes to another company, and then where are they at?
Right.
They're in trouble because they've got a sticks and glue and rubber bands, and yeah, it kind of works until it doesn't, and then who do you call?
Right.
And so I am excited for VMware's push into this. Not to speak about a product or a vendor or whatever, but I am. I think, and I've talked about this before, in that Linux as a desktop OS, let's say that, Linux as a desktop OS is never going to push past a niche, so to speak, and that's not a knock. It's actually a byproduct of its very nature in that Linux is a decentralized concept. It's roll your own. It's this. Even though Ubuntu is probably the big one.
Here are all of the tools you could ever want to use, right?
What is it, 10 or 20%? Its very nature is decentralized. There is not the Microsoft of Linux putting out, here's your OS, and then everybody kind of coalesces around it. So the very nature of it being decentralized means that it's never centralized, right? What is the big pillar in desktop Linux that you can trust that's always going to be there? The answer is there isn't one. Ride on to the biggest iceberg until it melts and go on to the next kind of thing.
So it's
fine.
It's that choice between you get to live in this ecosystem and we're going to make it life easy for you because we're going to put up these guardrails around you and make you a safe little place to live, or here's a computer and here's all of the bits that make it run, right? So I agree with that. It's this Wild West of sorts.
Well, and chances are out there, anybody who's listening to this podcast, if you had your boss say, you know what, clear your plate, you spend time on what you want to do and what you think, and we had unlimited time, let's say days turned into 72-hour days and 30-day weeks and 300-day months or whatever, like time is no longer an issue, we could all sit down, crack open the books, do our reference, and write our own automated scripts to do all of this. And that would be fine, but that's obviously not worth the time. And I think right now, currently, we have kind of a half step, a half measure to the idea that we all want to get. The technology is there. Containers, that's been a thing. The orchestration and the management of them is maturing, getting more robust, but still kind of all these different directions. I am looking forward to the Pivotal acquisition, as this is really going to take what we currently are comfortable with and make containers not all that foreign to us anymore. I feel like, because again, I am hesitant to get behind Kubernetes. And now there's K3S, which is supposed to be K8S, but kind of stripped down for the edge and simplified. There's all these ways I can go, and I don't want to walk down this road only to find that dead end and say you should have gone here.
Invest the time into something and then discover that you have to do it differently, or you should have done it differently, right?
And right, and you know me. I mean, I've been griping about time and efficient use of time and not wasting time more than anything. And maybe I'm getting older and I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that. The end of the road.
That's the one thing we have, right? Is how much time do we dedicate to this thing, and what's it worth? I think as a bigger software-defined, scripted, automated world, that's one of the things we at Ivoxy see a lot. Is our customers are the 1, 2, 3, 4 people in the IT department. That's the majority of them, and for those guys, it's often easier to just do it rather than spending that investment to make it
right. The process. Focus on the end result, not the process. And this is the reverse of that. Which the promise is the result is going to be a much better thing, but you have to dedicate yourself to doing it right in the process. It's almost like saying this: you might have the most pristine ops environment that you ever in your previous life, Matt, right? You got a great ops. What's the documentation look like? I think all of us could probably have that reaction, right?
You're right.
In that
it's all
we
up
all
here,
say we're
right?
good at documentation, right?
Yeah.
But now you have to doc it too.
Yeah.
And actually you have to do the documentation before you deploy it.
Right.
That's really what we're talking about here.
Kinda, yeah. Kinda. I mean, yeah. I like the one that I see as being beneficial is when you can have a defined state config, right? So this, I'm going to lean on Terraform and NSX, right? This is my environment. I built it. I configured it. And now suddenly routing isn't working, or my load balancer is being weird. Well, let me rerun my definition script, my Terraform script, or whatever against the environment, because I know that works. I know that's what it should be.
Your troubleshooting method is completely changed.
It's kind of a shotgun approach, and it's kind of a is it actually a config thing, or did a thing tip over, right? It's a change in the world, and the way you approach it.
So the great example, and I guess the test case that I ran for it, I deployed vSphere integrated containers in my home lab, and I got it running, and I got the host, and I feeling pretty good about things actually. So let's spin up an Nginx appliance, so to speak, a container that does the Let's Encrypt certificate. So one of the big things is really with containers now, your containers are not client network facing, right? They're not on the front end. They can be. I know Kazo's making a look up at the sky there, but yes, they can.
Well, what's wrong with that statement? Yeah. Anyway.
But right, everything is on this kind of private network, and then you're supposed to proxy through that container host and translate ports. So it's almost like another layer of NAT, right?
Sure, yeah.
So to speak. Well, one of the big things is this Nginx reverse proxy, because now I can have,
port 80,
whatever.matyeti.com, 100 of them, all running on a container host. But instead of doing a million port forwards, I can basically say, hey, 443 goes here. I've got all the certs I need through Let's Encrypt, and all my backend containers are proxied via that. I stood it up at home, and it was, oh, that failed, just start over, try this. Oh, that failed, just start over, try this. Where if it were an Nginx VM, I would just keep running Let's Encrypt until I got it working, or I got my outside NAT going. And it was just a very different approach to troubleshooting, and I guess it just tries to abstract and obfuscate what I want to really get my hands on.
You want to get to the fun, shiny part and make it actually work, and it's forcing you to spend the time ahead of time to get your data you're providing to the environment correct, so that it can do it over and over and over again.
Yep. And I would like to say I have a pretty nice lab. It's not some kind of slob, pigsty. But But yeah, it's something that I'm still working on. Here's the good news. I mean, anything radically different is good. You're going to. We all fought through it earlier in our career, and now the stuff that comes second nature to us, you can't even look back and imagine not understanding it intrinsically. But there was a time when it was the case, right?
There was a time when this was new. Yes.
Yep. So I was telling Kazo, I'm like a little hatchling, and I just came out of the womb, and this container thing is it's foreign to everything I have done in terms of operational infrastructure. And I just have to deal with it. I can see the benefits. I think the benefit for the user, the consuming side of things, happens when the acquisition, the deployment, and the insight into what's going on becomes more consistent, supportable, and repeatable. I think right now there is too much of an ask for Joe user to get up to here to consume these containers.
And what we really need is a whiteboard so we can see your hand motion and all of that stuff. I agree with that. It's it's not. Personally, I can see the direction. I can see the plan. I can see how it would be wonderful, like I was saying, to have here's this OVA you deploy, here's this container you deploy. Just deploy it, right? That would be wonderful. That would be awesome. That'd be great. But there isn't enough consistent infrastructure around that, and so it's still mostly a developer-driven environment, right? It's still mostly a developer-driven thing, and
yes.
And when we run into that same conversation when we talk to customers about, hey, you want to move to the cloud, right? Air quotes, the cloud. Well, is it a lift and shift, or do we actually need to start looking at refactoring this application to use these native tools to save you money and get the scale out of the database and get the thing out of the right? That's really where the benefit when you land on AWS, when you land on Azure, is the benefit of using those tools so you don't have this giant fat VM sitting there doing all of this computer stuff when really you just need it to run this little application.
And you called it out. Dev, as far as I think, dev is not necessarily IT. They are not completely in line, right? And so you've got this dev process that said, hey, IT/infrastructure, your stuff is out of date. Your model doesn't work for how we need to do things now. And, we think with progress that things get easier. With the advances in CPU and compute and all this, all it's done is enabled things to get markedly more complex because the capabilities are so much greater in the hardware and the processing power that this doesn't make software simpler. Software's gotten a heck of a lot more complex, which means the tools that support them, I think, are going that way as well. And it's just they're already there, and now the management of them needs to catch up and simplify it again, boil it down a little bit simpler.
Right. Here's this new way we can do this.
I feel like we're in that cycle right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would venture to say that cycle never really stops. Right?
No, and cycle's the word. Are we in the most cyclical industry in the world? A mainframe, dumb terminal. Now powerful workstation. Now our terminals are powerful, but we're back to the mainframe/cloud.
Yeah.
And yeah. But you are right about the scale with containers in the cloud, in that it's abundantly clear now that your VM is not portable. There are products and companies that we partner with that do the conversion bit, but that conversion has to happen. AKA, it's not eminently portable. It's not natively portable.
Right.
This is just not.
Right. And we're seeing the same kind of thing, right? The tools that Amazon provides, the native database APIs and stuff that Amazon provides, are not the same as the native database stuff that Microsoft provides, that Azure provides.
By design.
Right? So now we've got this, hey, I can pick up this old VM and stick it over here, but there's all of the bloat and all of the rest of the operating system that has to come with it. Right. And it's that trade-off that you either deal with that and you live with that and pay the extra to have all of that extra stuff running, or you work it natively and you have to solve for, well, sometimes I want to be on Amazon, sometimes I want to be on Azure, right?
Yep. And that's part of what I liked about Cloud Foundry, which was pivotal there, in that if I'm going to refactor my app, I'm going to write it for an API that's cloud agnostic, cloud provider agnostic, and then let that guy worry about the back end stuff to run on either. And I think that's what you're seeing with the whole pivotal thing, in that okay, I'm going to spend the significant hours to refactor my app for AWS.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say Amazon turns around and does whatever, whether it's pricing, business decision, crash, whatever. Why would I want to take what I have right now, say you're going to completely rewrite and put the significant resources into that effort? Why lock yourself into anything at that point? Unburden yourself and be able to go to any provider. And I like that. And I think containers are the services version of that.
They're a way to do that, right? I see the container as the way to make the custom code portable, thin and
Yes.
portable between places.
Yeah, a container can still rely on Lambda or SQL.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly, right?
But I think ultimately somebody who wants to be agile wants to obfuscate the actual provider from the code.
Right.
Ideally, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my goodness, that is a lot of.
Holy
on
crap!
that. I could go all morning. I am looking forward to future. I want to. We're going to be talking about containers throughout this entire series. I mean, it's not like, oh, that's it on that topic.
Hey, look, they still exist, right? a month from now, we're still going to have to deal with. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. There's going to be a lot to talk about because a lot's going to change, I think, in the coming months and years. One thing that I'm dying to get into with you in a future episode is Terraform as well. You mentioned it. In that, again, I went, just real quick, I went down that road. I deployed a VM with VMware, and it failed. It told me how to do the template, and I'm like, that's great. I could have just written a script to do that. And you're like, no, it's actually stateful, where it knows the rest about it knows about the rest of your environment, and knows what needs to happen. I want to dive deep on that, and maybe next episode or one of these coming up here very shortly. But we do have to wrap up.
We do.
So I believe you have I've never seen that before moment.
Yes, I've never seen it before. I didn't realize that they did it. It's been a minute since I've done a UCS firmware upgrade in an environment. Lots of new deployments, lots of here's a handful of servers. There is this mechanism in UCS, and I'm interested to see if you knew about this, where you can take a fabric interconnect and stop traffic on that FI.
Well, you can put it into a standby mode.
No, like when you do a firmware upgrade, right? So take your 6 ESX hosts hanging off of this environment, and they're connected to the 2 FIs, right? You've got your DV switch, and it's got the 2 network adapters. One's on FI A and one's on B, right? Sure. If I pull the power on and fabric B, I lose a half a network adapter on all of my hosts, right? So the thing that I didn't see, the thing that I didn't realize, and it was built into the upgrade script and did it automatically, was there is a offload mechanism where it shuts those interfaces off softly and lets it unload the traffic to it before just
it'll basically drain. It'll drain.
Yes.
So existing connections will not drop, but it will not allow any new ones to be created, and then it will wait until all of them have finally finished their sessions and established on the A side.
I mean, it's pretty quick if you look at ESX.
Graceful.
Yeah,
sure.
If you look at ESX, you see that interface go off, but
yeah,
it was a lot more graceful than just okay, cool. A subordinate FI is done. Reboot. It was
right.
It was actually shut it down, let it all the traffic trickle off, and then restart that session.
Right. Even at worst case where you just do pull the power, it should work, right? I mean, all of your applications, should your service profiles be set up correctly,
assuming the other layer of virtualization is set up right. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that was neat. I thought that was pretty
very cool. All right. Well, okay. So before we wrap up, I'm gonna continue with this theme because I like it.
Okay.
Don't think. Give me one. Give me another TV show to watch.
Okay. Another TV show.
You're thinking.
I am. I don't. So, I don't actually have a cable subscription. I don't actually watch TV unless I've downloaded it and have this thing that I can just sit and watch an episode through, right?
Okay.
Oh, I just watched. I didn't. I just watched Men in Black. I truthfully didn't realize that it was.
Is this a movie?
The new Men in Black. Yeah, they've got Men in Black International.
Okay.
And it's who played Thor on the Marvel movies? Come on, you know who Thor was.
Do I look like someone who watches Marvel movies?
Sure. Here, let me Google that real quick. Jeez.
I'll go into mine then. We can come back to you.
Yeah.
And good on you calling out a movie when I ask you what TV show to watch too. By the way,
Because that's what it is. It's like, let's watch a movie because I don't know what we want to start, and we get 3 episodes in, right?
So Dustin just kind of internally communicated here that Peaky Blinders season 5 just released. So here's the thing: I've heard nothing but amazing things that this is the show to watch, Peaky Blinders, and it's on my list, and I have not watched one episode yet because I do. You can almost prepare yourself, or like, listen, I know this is going to be good. I want to dive in, but I need to prepare myself. I can't watch that just because I've got an hour here. I need to be ready, and that of course moment never comes, right? But it's on my list. He says it's incredible. That's good to know because I've got way too many shows where I've watched 2 seasons and then it just completely falls apart. And it's really discouraging because if I'm going to invest the time, I will give you one.
Yes.
The Night Manager.
The Night Manager. I heard that name.
You familiar with this?
I've heard that name.
It's BBC, I believe, and AMC did it domestically. It came out in 2016. It is a miniseries. Now, there's been rumors about like a season 2 kind of thing, but it's only 1 season, and it's 6 one-hour episodes. So your classic British show, right, where it's kind of a mini-series. Oh, it's Tom Hiddleston. Is that his name? I screw it up every time. He's rumored to be one of the new James Bonds. Yeah, Tom Hiddleston, yes. And I think he was in Thor or something. So it's funny that you mentioned that. But he is the night manager at a hotel in Cairo, and he comes across some really nefarious stuff. And Hugh Laurie is in it as the big bad. He runs this like international conglomerate, and it turns out he's into some stuff. And so it's very much Jack Bauer, Jason Bourne, James Bond, all kind of wrapped into one with an amazing environment, and just the casting's really good. Anything you'd expect from a high-quality British miniseries. It is, if you've seen The Bodyguard, it's with the guy, the King of the North there. It's with Rob Stark.
Okay.
That's another 6-episode British miniseries. This is even better than that. So, yes, The Night Manager would be my recommend. Did you come around to Wikipedia yet on your side?
Yes, Google did not fail me. So, Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson.
Hemsworth. Right. And Tessa Thompson, those are both, there's a Hemsworth in Westworld, and Tessa Thompson's in Westworld also, I think.
Tessa was also the Valkyrie from the latest Thor Marvel movie. When I saw the front of the cover of the Men in Black movie, when I saw the cover of the Men in Black movie, I actually thought it was this blonde-haired surfer dude and someone else. I didn't realize it was them. And then we get into it, I'm like, oh, okay. There's a couple of as with most movies, there's a couple of, I'm going to fight you with this rubber mallet from Chris Hemsworth, right? Because he's Thor, and ha ha ha.
And you're right, it is Hemsworth. Dustin corrected me, there is no L. I personally think it's a birth certificate typo, but that's my position, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess that does it for episode 20.
Is that it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can only hope to contain us. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we really appreciate you all sticking with us for this little supersized episode on containers and TV shows and movies, apparently, thanks to Kaza there. Yeah, if you are not already subscribed to Data Center Therapy, find us on Stitcher, on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Overcast. That's my favorite app, Overcast. I'm a big fan. But yeah, anywhere good podcasts are offered, we are there. Thanks to our marketing team. If you feel generous, you want to give us a review, a 5-star review even, I don't know, feel free to do that. We will certainly appreciate the review, and it helps get our listing bumped up in the rankings and more listens, more subscribers, and it's just fun because Cozolino's very egotistical and loves to know that there are plenty of people out there listening to his voice.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
If you've got questions, podcast@ivoxy.com is the address to write to. We're on Twitter. Are we on Facebook? I don't know. We are on LinkedIn and Twitter. I know that. I don't know if Dustin's fired up the Instagram account yet, but Yes, apparently we're on Facebook too. Yes. So find us on all the social media platforms, on Insta as well. Questions, stuff you want to hear us talk about. We would love to have some submitted topics to say, hey, go ahead and I want to hear what your thoughts are on this, guys. So podcast@ivoxy.com. We are available at ivoxy.com, datacentertherapy.com. We've got all that covered. So thanks again for listening to Data Center Therapy. I am Matt, and for Matt, we say thank you and have a great day. Take care, everyone.
Cheers. Have a good one, guys.